I'm going to go out on a limb here and assume that if you watch this program, you're probably at least somewhat familiar with my next guest. He's a regular contributor to The Atlantic and a frequent panelist on the NPR game show Wait, Wait, Don't Tell Me. He's also the most quoted living writer in the Penguin Dictionary of Modern Humorous Quotations and the author of now 17 books. His most recent title is The Baby Boom, How It Got That Way, and It Wasn't My Fault, and I'll Never Do It Again. P.J. O'Rourke, welcome to Greater Boston.
Thank you.
After risking your life in more ways than one to practice your craft, writing 16 and now 17 books, and incurring the wrath and delight of the left and the right, why did you decide to write The Baby Boom?
Its time had come. I had some other idea for a book, if I must confess. This wasn't some stroke of genius. I was talking to my publisher, and he said, "Are you nuts?" He said, "Do you realize 2014 is the year in which the youngest baby boomers turn 50. If ever there was," and of course he didn't have to point out that people over 50 are the last people left buying and reading books.
At least not on Kindles.
Yeah, exactly.
Before you describe your paradoxically heavenly upbringing in the household and the parents who you clearly admire so well, and conversely, the hell-raising that you and others took part in around Toledo, you write this: "History is full of generations that had too many problems. We are the first generation to have too many answers."
Yes, and answer back was our key mode, and, all the way growing up. And it's quite true, really. I mean, most generations of people growing up around the world all through history have faced enormous problems. And there was this little window after World War II in which the baby boom was born, when the world was relatively peaceful. America was more than relatively prosperous, and things were quite stable. And that just doesn't often happen. In fact, it probably has never happened before in all of history.
You also write about these rainy days that you had when you were growing up and antidotes to boredom, such as board games and cards.
Yes.
And this is what you say about Monopoly, which was when it was really raining.
Yes.
"Despairing of its page upon page of rules, we'd make our own. This is how both Wall Street investment strategy and Washington economic policy were invented by our generation."
I'll go to court on that one.
Does that make you more angry than amused?
No, it probably makes younger people who have to suffer through the depredations of the baby boom angry and confused. But no, we are still rather careless with money. Of course, we started out with being careless with being careless with other people's money, our parents. And we had a brief period of being careless with our own money, and now we're careless with other people's money. They're known as the voters and the taxpayers.
Just before you came on set, you were asked if you had a cell phone, and you said no, you left it at home. And invariably, I think the electronic age would not escape your sight. But one salient observation that won't be lost on Kindle readers is then we, the baby boom, invented electronic personal communication devices. We of all people, TV that watches you. It's as if we read 1984 and said, good idea.
The telescreen, Big Brother on the telescreen, absolutely.
The Ministry of Truth.
Interesting thing about electronics, they are our baby. I mean, if the baby boom is really remembered for anything in the distant future, it will be the electronic revolution. Steve Jobs and Bill Gates and all the rest of them being baby boomers. We don't know how to use this stuff very well, though. I mean, my daughters call me, Uncle Thumble Thumbs. Let me try and say that again.
I think
yes,
I know what you mean.
Yeah, Uncle Fumble Thumbs. I can't get those things.
You also recall fairly tenderly, if I may say so, your mother and her sister writing each other at least twice a week.
Yes, and they lived. I lived in Chicago. My aunt lived in Chicago. This is 200 miles apart, and they would write letters to each other. Well, phone calls were expensive. And then when and you'd have to arrange for the phone call ahead of time to get the price would go down after 9 p.m. But 9 p.m. was late in those days, you know, and then Grandma would get on the phone and she'd shout because it was a long distance, wasn't it? You know, so, yeah, phone calls didn't really work.
You said many nice things about your parents, as I mentioned earlier, and you must have had some strong feelings when you were writing those passages.
You know, I did. In fact, I even teared up a few times. My parents died young, unfortunately, both of them, and my mom, unfortunately, died just in time to see me at my very worst during the 60s. And you look back on that greatest generation, and we think we live in a rapidly changing world, and we get confused just because we're Uncle Fumble Thumbs. But you think about how fast the world was changing for the greatest generation. I mean, they thought they'd seen it all. They'd gone through the Depression, they'd gone through World War II, and then the 60s happened. Poor folks.
Well, the book, by and large, is very funny, full of irony, and a little difficult to put down, even if it was 2 o'clock in the morning when I was finishing it.
Oh,
P.J. O'Rourke, thanks for joining us.
No higher compliment than a 2 in the morning read.